As many of you know, I just returned from a thru hike of the 76.2 mile Foothills Trail in North and South Carolina. It was incredible. What an amazing week-long adventure. So I wanted to talk through the logistics of planning a thru hike and some of my impressions from the trail and tips that I have if you are thinking about planning your own thru hike. Because this trail I think would be an amazing trail if you're not a super experienced backpacker, you're thinking about getting into long distance backpacking, you're thinking about getting into thru hiking, but you're not quite sure if you're gonna like it and you're not ready to dive right into one of the huge long trails like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. I think this would be an ideal trail for you to get out and practice on. And that's not to say that people who are more experienced won't enjoy this trail. I freaking loved it. It was like a highlights reel. It was like everything I was hoping the Appalachian Trail would be, and you guys know that I freaking loved my AT experience. But you know, there was a lot of times when you were just like trudging through the green tunnel on the AT. Not that I personally ever really minded, because I felt like there were so many things to see on like a closer level, like wildflowers and like creatures and like, you know, the Appalachian Mountains are just so freaking alive. But anyway, I was probably hoping for more like swimming opportunities and beautiful waterfalls and things like that. And I got all of those things in abundance on the Foothills Trail. So I think whether you're not experienced at all or you're super experienced, you will enjoy this trail. It's freaking awesome. But I just think that in terms of like, oh, you're thinking about getting into long distance backpacking, you're thinking about doing a thru hike, but you're not quite sure yet, I think this would be just an amazing practice trail for you. I really do. I think that it would make anyone fall in love with hiking and backpacking. And if you get out there and it doesn't make you fall in love with hiking and backpacking, like maybe it's not for you. in my humble opinion. Unless you just straight up don't like rain, in which case just go to some West Coast hike. Anyway, okay, so let's first talk through the logistics of a Foothills Trail thru hike. So this is a point-to-point trail. It's not a loop. So you're gonna need either two cars, one to park at Oconee State Park and one to park at Table Rock State Park, both of which are in South Carolina. Or you're gonna have to get one car, put that at one end of the trail, get a shuttle to the other end of the trail, and then hike back to your car. Or you're gonna need two shuttles. So those are your three options in terms of getting to the trail. So since it's a point-to-point, you can either start at Table Rock or at Oconee. I personally started at Oconee, and I would really recommend doing it that way. I just really enjoyed going that direction. But I mean, either way, obviously you'll be totally fine. It'll be a wonderful trail. It'll be great. So it's really up to you. But pretty much I think the best way to decide which place you want to start at is there is one big climb on the Foothills Trail. It's Sassafras Mountain. You have to ascend like 3,000 feet within like 4.5 miles or something like that. So you can either do Sassafras at the beginning of your week, probably day 1 or 2, depending on how fast you're doing the trail, how many miles you're doing a day, or you're gonna end up doing it like on one of your last days. Again, whatever day it is, depends on how fast you're doing this trail. So you can either do it near the beginning when your legs are fresh, but your bag is gonna be heavier because you're carrying all of your food. Or you can do it later in the week when your legs might be a little more tired, but your food bag is probably gonna be a lot lighter because you have eaten through it. So once you decide at which point in the trail you wanna do Sassafras Mountain, then you can kind of decide, okay, do I wanna start at Table Rock and do it first earlier in the week, or do I want to do it at Oconee and do Sassafras later in the week? So then you can decide, okay, where is it that I need to leave my car or cars? Where is it that I need to get a shuttle from and to, and all that good stuff. And by the way, if you need to arrange a shuttle, the Foothills Trail Conservancy actually has a list of shuttle drivers on their website. I used a guy named Taz because everyone that I've heard from who's hiked the Foothills Trail said go to Taz. Taz is awesome. He's the best. blah, blah, blah. So I ended up using Taz, and he was great. I would definitely recommend him. I can put his information below in the show notes in case anyone's interested in getting in contact with him. But I'll also put the link to the Foothills Trail Conservancy page that lists the shuttle drivers as well, so that you have some different options. Especially because like Taz seems to be a pretty busy shuttle driver, so I feel like if you're going during a busy time, which he says the busiest time is April, but if you're going at a really busy time, like you might not be able to get Taz, so I think that there are some other options on that page, and I'll put that link below. So if you are flying in to do the trail like I did, you can either, the closest airports are Greenville, South Carolina, or Asheville, North Carolina. Both of these airports are a little under an hour's drive to Table Rock State Park, or about an hour and a half drive to Oconee State Park. So for me, I did the trail with 3 other friends to start, and then one other friend joined us. And so we left the car that we had at Table Rock State Park. We got a shuttle with Taz to Oconee State Park, and then we hiked back to the car at Table Rock. And if you are leaving a car overnight at one of these parks, you do have to purchase a parking permit in advance. And for Table Rock State Park, you can get this at the headquarters/visitor center, and it's $6 per night per vehicle to leave it there at the trailhead. So the trailhead at Table Rock State Park is on a different road than the headquarters. So you have to go over to the headquarters and visitor center, purchase your parking pass, and then drive to the trailhead from there, which is kind of across a highway on a different road, and it's over by the nature center. You actually walk right by the nature center in order to actually start the Foothills Trail if you're starting at Table Rock. So obviously that means that you're coming back through the nature center when you finish if you're starting at Oconee. At Oconee State Park, you can get the parking permit right at the entrance to the park, and that's a $5 per day fee. And so then both of these, either park that you get your parking permit, they'll give you a hang tag. And then obviously you can either hang that from your rear view mirror or just put it up in the dash as long as it is visible. Because they say that they do check those parking permits, so you must have a permit. Also at both parks, in addition to this parking permit, they also want you to register your hike. So I actually just registered mine at Table Rock State Park when I was getting the parking permit with the same person. I was just asked to put all of my information as the trip leader and then how many of us were out hiking. But there are also kiosks at both state parks that you can use to register your hike as well. I noticed a sign at Table Rock State Park when we were coming out of our hike that basically said if you're going more than a quarter mile on trail, they want you to register and they want you to put your information down. So make sure that you are registering your hike that is separate from just getting your parking permit before you head out into the wilderness. And you just need one card per group, and there's no fee for this. And it's not something you need to get in advance. You can just do it when you go to start your hike. So once you've registered your hike and gotten your parking permit and gotten to the trailhead for the start of your hike, then you can just be off on your way. So I personally used the Far Out app, which used to be known as Guthook, and they have just recently added the Foothills Trail to their store. So this is a brand new guide for them. If you've never used Far Out before, it's an app and you just purchase a guide for whatever trail that you're going on, and then you download the trail and its information in advance before you actually go out into the wilderness, because on the Foothills Trail at least, there's not a lot of cell service, so you definitely want to have this downloaded ahead of time. And this app, you'll open it up and it'll show you really important trail things like where the water source is, where are the campsites, where are different trail features, what is the elevation of the trail that you're going to be on. Are you going to be going uphill? Are you going to be going downhill? Like, what's going on? So all of these really important aspects of the trail you will get from the Far Out app. And honestly, it makes backpacking so easy, because a lot of trails, if you're going out backpacking, like especially for like smaller weekend trails and things like that, you're going to have to try to acquire a map in advance. and figure out where the water sources are and the campsites. And Far Out is just so easy because it's interactive. Like, you can turn on the GPS and it'll show you exactly where you are on the trail. And then you can look ahead, say to the next campsite, and it'll tell you how many miles ahead that campsite is. Does the campsite have water? And then people who have used the guide can actually leave comments and let you know, like, oh, this is a great campsite. Or, oh, this water source was just a trickle on April 5th. Or things like that. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. And when I'm out backpacking, like, I get pretty tired by the end of the day, so I don't want to get to a campsite that I'm expecting to stop at and realize that, like, oh, this campsite has only like one spot and there's 4 of us. Or, you know, I love to camp next to water, like near water. I don't want to have to go way down the trail to get to the water source. So I don't want to show up at a campsite and find out there's no water. So anyway, I just really like the Far Out app. There are also other like maps or trail books that you can get, but that is just what I used, and I personally think that's the easiest. But just keep in mind that the Far Out app does kind of drain your cell phone battery. So I always bring, on all my backpacking trips, I'll bring an external battery with me. So I would really recommend that you bring some sort of charging source in order to charge your cell phone if you're relying on the Far Out app. And obviously, whether you're using the app or not, it's just good safety practice to always be able to have your phone charged. This is the charger that I personally use. This is an Anchor brand. I'll put a link to this down in the show notes in case anyone's interested. They make different sizes. This is like one of their big boys. It's pretty heavy, but I personally think it's worth it. So I was on the Foothills Trail for 8 days. I just really wanted to have a chill time and to be able to take all the waterfall trails and to be able to go swimming. And, you know, I did it from May 13th to 20th, so that's early backpacking season, especially because I live in Colorado and we still have a bunch of snow in the mountains right now. But anyway, so I didn't want to strain myself or work too hard, and I just wanted to have a really chill, nice time, so that's why I did it over 8 days. But anyway, so this lasted me all 8 days, no problems, and I was taking photos, I was taking tons of video, I was using the Far Out app, I was listening to music sometimes. And this lasted me the whole week and still had several charges left in it at the end of the week, which I was really personally excited about because I was kind of I used to have a smaller one, and I was kind of practicing like, how long is this going to last me when I'm on the Colorado Trail this summer? And it seems like it's going to easily last me over a week, no issues. So anyway, would recommend getting one of these if you don't already have an external battery. So keep in mind, on the Foothills Trail, there are no towns along the way. There are no waysides. There are no snack bars. There are no grocery stores. You're just out there in the wilderness the entire time that you're on the trail. Whether you're on the trail for 4 days or 8 days like me, you got to bring everything you need with you because there are no places, no towns to stop in. No creature comfort locales to stop in. But another bonus of using Taz for a shuttle is that he actually brought along a small ammo box for each of us that were in the shuttle. And by the way, he can fit up to 4 people in his shuttle at a time. So he brought us each a small ammo box to put a resupply in, and then he dropped that resupply for us around mile 28 coming from Oconee. So 28 miles into the trail, which for us was on day 3 that we hit this mile, we were able to pick up a resupply so that we did not have to carry all of our food for the entire time that we were out there. That was a huge bonus for me, and it was a huge reason that I really wanted to use Taz for the shuttle, because I don't like to carry 8 days of food at a time. That's really freaking heavy. So it was really nice to be able to take, 4 to 5 days of food, basically put it in this resupply and pick it up after we'd been on the trail for 3 days. If you have 2 cars and you're kind of doing your own shuttling, then you could always, bring the supplies to do your own food drop off somewhere along the trail. If you're interested in where he dropped it off, I can let you know. I feel like the Far Out app could also be really helpful for picking a location, because it also shows you on there, like, you can find where the trailheads are and, you know, where there might be parking lots. So you could drive to that location ahead of your hike, drop off your things in a bear-proof, animal-proof container, or do a bear hang, or do whatever you need to do, and then pick it up along your way on your hike. But of course, if you're doing this yourself, you're gonna have to go back at the end and then pick up your container or whatever it was that you used. So I think as far as logistics, that's pretty much all you need to know. But if you have any more questions, let me know down in the comments. As far as campsites and water sources, they are plentiful. There are so many gorgeous campsites, many of them like right near water or even along water. So I mean, you're not gonna be looking around for campsites and water, because they're all over the place. Pro tip, there was a campsite I really wish that I would have stayed at. Coming from Oconee, I think it was about 8-ish miles in. So you get about 8 miles in, like 8 point something, and you get to this off trail to go to Lick Log Falls. If you follow that off trail, you will get to a trail that will take you down to the Chattooga River. And there are some campsites that are right on the river. They're gorgeous campsites. You could swim there while you're camping out. We found them, we stayed just before those campsites. Like, we didn't get there, we stayed at like mile 8, and then they were at like 8 point something. And these were like legit campsites. I know, like, sometimes you're not supposed to camp on water or whatever, but these are designated campsites, like with fire rings, with like a little grill. And I just wish that we had just gone a little farther up the trail and found these campsites before we decided to stay where we did. Our campsite was totally fine. It was a really nice campsite, but it was not a gorgeous campsite right on the river. So I really regretted not staying there. So that's my tip for you. If you're coming from Oconee, go like 8+ miles in, take this offshoot to Lick Log Falls, go down to the river. There are gorgeous campsites down there. And then, as I recall, there were also some gorgeous campsites right along the river between miles like 10 and 11. So don't make my mistakes. Go to the beautiful river campsites. That's what I would do differently if I did it again. Something that I think we did really right, though, is that there are several campsites that are right along Lake Jocassee at Toxaway Creek. Like, these campsites, they're designated campsites. There are several of them. They're gorgeous. And we stayed at one that's called the last campsite on the lake, according to the Far Out app. You know, when you're going from the direction that we went from Oconee to Table Rock, this was like the last campsite on the lake that we stayed at. And we had a little beach area. We just spent a half day there and literally just swam and sat on the beach, chilled on the beach all day long. I could see the lake from my tent, just like looking out my tent door. I'm like, oh, here's this gorgeous blue lake. So that is something I think we did really right. And I would also recommend that you stay there. If you love swimming as much as I do and you don't want to have to swim in your hiking clothes, I would definitely recommend that you bring a bathing suit. I bring a bathing suit on most of my backpacking trips. It's a little extra weight, but it is so worth it in my opinion, because I just don't want to be hiking in soaking wet clothes, at least more than I have to. Sometimes they get soaked in sweat, but I don't want to soak them so that they're super wet and uncomfortable when I'm hiking if I don't have to. So I always bring a bathing suit, and then I just dry it on the back of my pack, or I'll get it out at camp and hang it or whatever. In terms of gear regrets, my only regret for the things that I took on the Foothills Trail was that I honestly brought way too many clothes. In terms of, I'm a really cold sleeper, and that is my backpacking fear, is being cold. So I feel like, especially for trails that I'm not quite sure what the weather is going to be like you can check the weather ahead of time, obviously, but you never know quite what it's going to be like out there. Anyway, so if I'm not totally like, oh, I understand the climate of this place or whatever, I'll bring extra clothes because I just don't want to get out there and be cold and miserable. But, okay, like I said, we were out there from May 13th to 20th, And I had way too many clothes in my bag that I did not even pull out. Like, I brought a Melendana hooded sweatshirt, never wore it one time, I don't think. I brought a puffy, I had like my hiking clothes, and then I had a pair of pants to sleep in, did not need those. The nights were humid and they were hot. So I would not, if I went back, I would not bring my sleeping pants, because I bring rain pants anyway, so worst case scenario, I could have just slept in my rain pants. So I would have left the pants home, and I would have left the Melendana sweatshirt at home. I also had a puffy, which I maybe wore once or twice. I would still bring that though. I just personally don't like to leave home without my puffy. That's a safety item for me. So regardless of whether I actually use the puffy, I would still want to bring the puffy with me, but definitely could have left the sweatshirt and the sleeping pants at home. Because for the most part, I was just sleeping in a tank top and a pair of shorts, and I was like out of my sleeping bag. I use a sleeping bag liner, so I was just sleeping inside that liner on top of the sleeping bag. And then, in addition, I have a 20-degree Western Mountaineering sleeping bag that I pretty much bring on all my backpacking trips. But I also own a little Sea to Summit 55-degree bag that I bought while I was through hiking the AT. And that bag would have been perfect for this trip. I should not have brought that 20-degree bag. It was way, 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 way too hot. I couldn't even sleep inside of it anyway. So if I could do it again at this time of the year, as long as the weather forecast looked okay, I would have brought that 55-degree bag anyway. Because when I was on the AT, I bought that bag in Damascus at the beginning of May, and I sent my winter bag home. So I ended up using that bag from early May all the way until the end of the trail in mid-September. So you gotta think, it was like mid-May down in South Carolina. I definitely could have gotten away with that smaller bag, and I should have thought about that ahead of time, because it would have been more appropriate for the weather, and I wouldn't have had to carry the extra weight on my back for the bigger sleeping bag. And finally, I would like to tell you why I think that mid-May, when we went, was the absolute perfect time to do this trail. I've seen other videos about this trail. It looks like you could go any time of the year and it would be a delight. But I just felt like we timed it so freaking perfectly, and I want to tell you why. First of all, I am really, really, really into wildflowers. I freaking love them. Part of the big magic for me while I was hiking the Appalachian Trail was seeing all the mountain laurel and rhododendrons and trillium and azaleas in bloom in the forest. I just think they make the forest that much more magical. So while we were there, we kind of caught the tail end of the trillium and the azaleas. We got to peak mountain laurel, and then just as we were finishing the trail, the rhododendrons were starting to pop. Also, I freaking love fireflies. They're just so magical. Just so magical. Like, how are those real? They're just insanely magical. And we don't have fireflies in Colorado. I grew up in Western New York, like where there were so many fireflies, and I miss seeing them in the early summer everywhere. Like, I love them so much. So on this trail in mid-May, not only did we see fireflies, we saw these rare fireflies that are only found in this region of the country. They're little teeny guys, and they emit a bluish whitish light, and they're called blue ghosts. And we saw a couple that were like not lit up, and they were tiny compared to like the normal firefly size, which, by the way, normal fireflies are like, they emit yellow light and they're much bigger. So there was definitely a clear difference, and I had never seen these before because they're only in this one region. And when I went through that region on the AT, it wasn't firefly season yet. I saw all my fireflies like Virginia to Pennsylvania while I was on the AT. So that was just like a really, really cool little treat. And by the way, I learned that they're named blue ghosts because they are named after Confederate soldiers, because they're found in an area where a lot of Confederate soldiers passed away during the Civil War. So anyway, that was just super cool. And then finally, it was great hiking weather. It was a little hot some of the days we were out there, but if you're on a trail where you're hoping to do a lot of swimming and see a lot of waterfalls and you're just near a lot of water, you want it to be a little bit warm out, right? And I felt like it was the perfect balance. Like, it was hot enough that I wanted to go swimming, but it wasn't so hot that I didn't want to be hiking. And the nights were really comfortable. It was really easy to just hang out outside of our tents because we weren't cold or anything like that. And also, like, I got some bug bites for sure, but it wasn't insane or anything. By the way, I also forgot my bug spray. I would recommend bringing bug spray if you are a person who likes to wear bug spray, because that would have been helpful a couple of days it was a little buggy. So yeah, those are the reasons why I think mid-May is the perfect time to do this trail. Let me know if you've done it a different time of the year and you have arguments for a different time. I think it'd be kind of fun to go back sometime and do it in the fall, but obviously it's tough, like so many trails, so little time, right? So that is really all I wanted to say about the Foothills Trail. If you have any questions about logistics or campsites or what you should bring or any of that stuff, please reach out to me in the comments. I'm always happy to answer questions. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in this trail, I hope that you go out there and do it, because it's just an incredible trail. I just really loved it. I had the best time. I miss it. I've got the mini post-trail blues right now. I'm like back, you know, it's a work day, got stuff to do, got responsibilities, and I just miss being out on an adventure. Ugh, it went by too fast. Okay, you guys, don't forget to subscribe for more hiking, backpacking, outdoor content. Follow me on Instagram at AudiePayne for more real-time updates, and I'll talk to you all next time. See ya!